Good afternoon. I'm Sheriff Mike Williams, and joining me here today, our FBI Special Agent in charge, Mark Hoffman, State Attorney Melissa Nelson, and Councilwoman LeAnna Cumber. January is National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and every year we come together to reaffirm our commitment to put an end to this type of crime. Additionally, events like this are important in helping raise awareness within our community, as oftentimes individuals are witnessing this crime happening but don't even realize it. So I'd like to take a quick moment to acknowledge our criminal justice and nonprofit partners, excuse me, many of who are in the room with us today. We are all part of the Northeast Florida Human Trafficking Coalition, and the work you'll hear about today is the result of their support, collaboration, and dedication to solve these crimes. Human trafficking is modern-day slavery. It is a crime that involves compelling or coercing a person to provide labor or services or to engage in a commercial sex act. There is no specific profile for this type of victim. Suspects prey on a wide variety of individuals depending on their intentions. Sadly, this type of crime is happening everywhere and can be really hidden in plain sight. Some key questions that one might ask upon seeing a suspicious situation are: does the victim act fearful, anxious, depressed, submissive, tense, nervous, or paranoid? Does the victim defer to another person to speak for him or her? Can the victim freely contact friends or family? And has the victim been forced to perform any sexual acts? Teaching our community the signs to look for and how to report it is one of the many ways we're trying to stop this crime from continuing on the First Coast. So next time you encounter a situation that just doesn't seem right, stop and ask yourself those questions. No matter if it's noon or 1 in the morning, know that we're here and we will continue to be here to take that call and look into every situation. You just have to take the first step by calling us at 904-630-0500 and reporting what you see. So at this time, I'd like to ask FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Mark Hoffman, to say a few words. Mark?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sheriff Williams, for hosting us today, and thanks to all our partners for your efforts to stop human trafficking, not just this month, but throughout the year. I'm Mark Hoffman, Assistant Special Agent of the FBI Jacksonville Criminal Branch, and I oversee human trafficking matters for the FBI in North Florida. Human trafficking is best described as modern-day slavery. As I speak with you today, thousands of innocent victims right here in the heart of the free world are being bought, sold, and exploited by criminals. They are being robbed of their basic human rights, forced to work for little or no pay as prostitutes or in other grueling jobs in factories, on farms, or even restaurants. Their traffickers may seem kind to them at first, even generous, promising good pay or romance. But now these victims are living lives of misery, trying to pay off mounting debts or even pay for basic needs such as food, shelter, and transportation. If they do not do as their traffickers order, the consequence could be severe and they could face horrible beatings or even be starved. Human trafficking is a heinous crime, and unfortunately it is happening in communities of all sizes in every state across our country. Right now, special agents in all 56 field offices in the U.S. are working to stop this monstrous crime. The FBI leads 86 child exploitation and human trafficking task forces around the nation, and collectively have more than 1,800 open investigations. All in all, the FBI Jacksonville territory, which encompasses 40 Florida counties, our efforts are paying off. In one case, we recovered and identified 21 women who were forced into prostitution at massage parlors located in Florida, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. The subject, who we arrested in Pensacola, pled guilty and was ordered to pay more than $128,000 and is currently awaiting his final sentencing. We also recently conducted 3 joint operations with our local partners despite challenges of COVID-19, and during those we arrested 3 individuals and located 15 potential victims who are now receiving support from our victim specialists. Unfortunately, the number of human trafficking cases that the FBI works increases nearly every year. It is unclear at this time if it's because more people are aware of the problem or if the problem itself is growing. But what is clear is that we must work together if we're going to stop human trafficking in our communities. All of the FBI's human trafficking cases involve coordination with local, state, and federal law enforcement partners, as well as nonprofit agencies, including those that you see here today. and we're always seeking new partnerships that will help maximize our resources and better support survivors so they can take steps towards avoiding a cycle of abuse in the future. Thankfully, there are many community organizations who do this important work, and that part is vital. There is a high rate of recidivism for trafficking victims due to the psychological hold that their traffickers have on them. Trafficking victims also fear their traffickers and often refuse to testify against them, which makes it very difficult for law enforcement to prove that they were forced to work against their will. We rely on community organizations to help survivors understand their rights, so they will work with us to hold these criminals accountable in court. We also rely on you, the public, to help us in our fight against human trafficking. Here are some of the signs you can look for. Individuals may be victims of human trafficking if they work in the same place they live and may even have locks on the outside of their doors rather on the inside. They let someone else speak for them. They have increasing debt. They pay their boss for food, clothing, or other basic needs. Someone is always watching or guarding them, or they are not free to contact family or friends. It is important to know, however, that even if someone seems free to come and go as they please, they may still be a victim of human trafficking because their imprisonment can be more psychological than physical. So a key factor in this is, does the potential victim feel free to leave the situation? Perhaps you know someone in this situation, or perhaps you will someday. What we're asking you today is that when you see something that doesn't feel right, share it with law enforcement just in case. You might save a life, and you will certainly be a part of the effort that makes our community safe. Thank you. Sheriff.
Thanks, Mark. And again, just take a minute to thank the FBI for their day-to-day partnership in this area and in many other areas. So thank you again. Next, I'd like to invite our State Attorney, Melissa Nelson.
Thank you, Sheriff. This annual awareness event remains important both to educate our community so we can identify human trafficking and its signs, and to acknowledge the folks who dedicate their energy and talents to eliminating this awful but very real scourge. The Department of Defense human trafficking statistics are indeed sobering. 1 in 6 runaways reported in the United States are likely to become sex trafficking victims. 4.5 million people worldwide are victims of forced sexual exploitation, and $99 billion is made annually from sex trafficking. And our city is not immune from this issue. We are, however, very fortunate to have heroes in this community who work together to fight this problem, expose its ugliness, rescue its victims, and help them as they transition to survivor. And to those of you here today who do this work, thank you. Like law enforcement and so many of you in attendance, the State Attorney's Office also has a role in this fight. 5 years ago at this very news conference, I announced changes in how the State Attorney's Office would approach human trafficking. Today, we have a single prosecutor dedicated to these cases. She's cross-sworn as a federal prosecutor, so we can utilize the best forum for achieving justice. We established a human rights division under which these cases are now prosecuted, and we created a coinciding hotline to call with tips on suspected rights violations. Since that first press conference 5 years ago, our human trafficking team has been recognized nationally for their success, and they've been invited to teach human trafficking training across the country to different police departments. We've also changed the way we view victims of human trafficking who end up in our system as defendants. We see their value and dignity despite their circumstances. And we've changed the way we treat them in the criminal justice system, pairing them with services and utilizing our treatment courts. And lastly, we hold the traffickers to account through prosecution. 5 years ago, we had 0 pending cases in state court. Currently, we have 8 cases pending against human traffickers. I echo what my colleagues have said in their calls for the community to remain vigilant and look for the signs of human trafficking. If you see something, say something. Thank you, Sheriff.
Great, thank you. So today, as we close out the news conference, I want to leave you with an overview of some cases our partners in conjunction with JSO's Integrity and Special Investigations Unit have worked in 2020. 35 victims were identified and or rescued. Of those, 8 were juveniles. There were 27 human trafficking and related arrests, and 2 of those are pending federal indictments. So So these cases highlight what can be accomplished with effective investigations and prosecution. But as with all crime, our continued education of the public and emphasizing the need for our community to call us with their tips and suspicions is the key. So remember, it doesn't matter what time of day, we're always here to help. So if you think someone is a victim of human trafficking, please do not hesitate to call us and report it, again, at 630-0500. You can email us at jsocrimetips@jaxsheriff.org. Or as always, if you want to remain anonymous, you can reach out through our partners at Crime Stoppers, and that number is 1-866-845-TIPS. So again, I want to thank the members of the nonprofit community, the Human Trafficking Coalition, for their work. I want to thank Councilwoman Cumber for her work locally on this issue, and of course all of our law enforcement partners. And with that, we can open it up for a few questions.
Sheriff, do you think that there's a problem with misinformation? So many people see human trafficking like Hollywood, where they're kidnapped, they're locked up, and that's not necessarily the case. They're living among us. I mean,
Correct. Yeah, not so much misinformation. Again, it's about really educating the public. Like in so many things we do, we've got to get the community involved in that process. And so the right, what to look for, those things that we talked about, those are clues and things that would drive suspicion, and we would encourage people to reach out when they see that and let us investigate that and be able to clear that up or potentially rescue a victim and save a life.
Sheriff, how has COVID-19 affected some of this over the past year now, especially with more kids online for school?
So obviously COVID has affected everything, and we just got to continue to work through it, be creative in how we're, again, reaching the community and encouraging people, again, as they see things, to be able to report that. With people spending less time out in public now, you're going to get less of those tips, and we expect that. But as things begin to open up, hopefully in the next few months, again, encouraging people to reach out and with their suspicions so that we can look into it.
Are there certain areas in Jacksonville, or is this all?
It's safe to assume it's widespread. I mean, in every city, as the state attorney said, I mean, it's a challenge that every city faces. And so, not to label any particular area, but any of those really behaviors, not so much the geography, but the behaviors that you see is what really should drive the suspicion. And again, we encourage people to call us when they see that.
State Attorney Nelson, is there an issue with prosecution? What are the challenges when it comes to so much intimidation for these victims?
So there are challenges, and as the FBI SAC mentioned, one of those is the emotional attachment to the trafficker, victims, and their reticence to participate in prosecution. We often, our team will, and the FBI has incredible victim specialists who get involved very, very early on, and often a victim will relapse, perhaps, and be cooperative in the beginning. And then the idea of actually facing her trafficker in a court of law is very, very daunting. So that's something that we recognize, we've learned a lot about, and we work towards building a successful prosecution from the very first contact we have with a victim. Getting them on their feet, making them confident, getting them employed. We have tons of fantastic nonprofits in this community that help us with that, all of which lend to getting them to a place we need them to be to take the stand and testify.
Great. Anything else? All right. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.